Hi, and welcome to another exciting pirate news. With me are the fine gentlemen known as the Pirates of Massachusetts, including yourself, the quartermaster, our fearless captain,
Ahoy.
the one and only Steve,
Good evening.
and the magnificent Malt.
Hot and crispy pork chop sandwiches.
So we have a few announcements and just a couple articles we want to talk to you about tonight. We're going to keep it light and brief, but most importantly, there is an event that we are definitely supporting with all of our might. And with the news on that, Jamie?
Sure. So Mass Peace Action and the local group who's been organizing weekly protests in support of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange are having a screening of the War on Journalism, the case of Julian Assange, on Monday, October 25th from 2 to 4 p.m. at the First Church in Cambridge, Congregational at 11 Garden Street, Cambridge, Massachusetts. That will also be live streamed. We will put a link. We'll put this into the chat comments, and then we'll also put a link in the description so you can go and check that out. Shout out to them who've been working really hard on this issue. He's having a hearing coming up, so finding out more about it now is a good thing. And then another event that is coming up on the 30th of October, our friends at Restore the Fourth Boston are going to be holding a Understanding Fusion Centers at 5 p.m. That will be live streamed on YouTube, and we've already have that up on our website, and we will link to that so you can go and catch it when it comes out. We want to thank them for talking about, the Boston Regional Information Center and how that's been used to surveil on and suppress social movements for over a decade. They are asking, speaking at it will be Boston City Councilor Ricardo Arroyo, law student Danny Hargis, and journalist Emma Best, who always does incredible work for freedom of information and stuff on the national security state, and others, and local friend Alex Matthews, who's Restore the Fourth national chair. The event is free to attend, but they'd appreciate a donation, $10 donation if you're able. We have links for that. And then just for us, on November 6th, from 11 to 1, we're going to be in the Seaport District, continuing our project of mapping the surveillance cameras in that part of the great city of Boston. And we hope you'll come out and join us. And we will soon have up how you can go and sign up to tell us you're coming. But you don't have to, obviously, but we'll be meeting in front of the Congress Street entrance to the World Trade Center MBTA Silver Line stop at 11 o'clock. So what else is going on, folks?
Thank you so much for that. So obviously we have a lot coming up that we're hoping you all be a part of. And that being said, we do have a couple of news articles that we wanted to go over. There was some news with ICAN. If you are not familiar with what ICAN is, that's where if you want a new registry, want to register a new website, that's where you go. That's the corporation that approves it and issues your number. What's the story with that, gentlemen?
So the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. That's the governing body that manages keeping track of effectively keeping track of who owns what. So when you register a website, you are required to fill out information called a who is registry, and it basically explains who you is, more or less. And there are a number of ways to keep this information private, which is useful because you don't always want that information out there for legitimate reasons, but also illegitimate reasons. And right now, there are policies put forward to make it easier to bring enforcement actions against these anonymatized individuals, but there's not been a way, like there's not been implementation enacted by ICAN. And with the recent acts in England and Europe, the what's it called, the GDPR privacy law, which I don't. Does anyone remember what that stands for?
No, but I bet who is doesn't exactly work too well with it.
General Data Protection Regulation. So this is the website, or this is the law that made it so that now every website on the goddamn planet has that little pop-up that says, "Hey, we're going to sell your information. Eat shit." Before you can use it. So that's that shit. So it is somehow, I'm not clear on the distinctions because it's incredibly technical and boring, that it is actually made bringing enforcement actions against European registered websites even more difficult than normal. So good on you, Europe.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I find interesting about the RIAA going after ICAN is simply that they really believe that we should have no privacy, right? They should be able to go, and if someone sets up a website that is used for sharing files in whatever way, if there could be any copywritten files, then obviously they should be able to find out who they are so they can go sue them or throw them in jail or whatever RIAA's plan is. And so as pirates, we fundamentally believe in the right to privacy. So yeah, that information, if someone wants to, unfortunately, they have to pay for it. You don't get it out of the box. But if someone chooses to keep things private, they should, and screw the RIAA.
Like, they have been the internet's #1 villain for literally 20 years now. Yeah, 2 full decades. The RIAA is not going to stop until they get to put a box in every ISP in the country that monitors everything that goes on those wires. Like, they will measure, like, they will check every packet to make sure you're not streaming media you don't have access to. That is how fanatical these fuckers are.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the kind of thing where, old business models get really upended by technology. So one of the things that the RIAA is concerned about is like, mechanical royalties from, the sale of music, copywritten music. So this was for a long time and throughout human history, this was not a thing. But, back in the day, in the early 20th century, late 19th, people started they developed the technology to record things so that people would listen to could go back and listen to them. You started off with the wax cylinders, and then you got the big, thick lacquer 78s that played in the Victrola with the little dog sitting next to it. And then you eventually moved to records, and then cassette tapes. Now that's a scary thing, because you can record a record on a cassette tape, and then there's compact discs, and then there's digital audio tape, and all of these things enabled people to like make copies of things. Well, so the internet, the freaking copying machine, man. You just, one of the things that I just have to, pay attention, have to point out is that music publishers, the folks who traditionally, had rights to music and sold sheet music, and artists who performed it, right? They were really, really pissed off about records and, you know, recordings when they came out because, oh gosh, if you could buy a recording of a musician, who will ever go to see a band play live again, right? I saw some live music last weekend. It was good. So yeah, I think you know, unless the RIAA is just going to say, you know, we're not going to have artists issue recordings anymore. People like to share stuff, and
Yep.
people who really are really fans of a band, will, you know, will buy the music, they will buy the merchandise, they will go to shows. You know, I think in a nutshell, what I'm really trying to say is, don't piss off your best customers. End of rant.
Exactly.
Well, isn't it a thing that people who download a movie are more likely to go to the movies still, and people who download music go to live shows and concerts? It's like, what you're doing is you're just cutting out the middleman, which is
So
the big corporations.
there are a number of studies that prove, like, that when taken aggregate, prove that the fundamental assumption that the RIAA is making is that one act of piracy equals one lost sale. And that's how they calculate, like, oh, 20 billions of dollars was stolen from us by pirates, which is just fundamentally nonsense. Like, it's not stealing from you because it wasn't money you were going to ever earn in the first place.
Right. I mean, the fact that you know, if I were to say, listen to, I don't know, the new Christy Minstrel Singers, it's not the same thing as me going out and buying an album because, hey, I wasn't going to buy that anyway. And maybe the fact that I heard it is just further, you know, just like a further stake in the ground that, yeah, I really shouldn't buy it.
Yeah, and like you see that, like, the big streaming services and even physical MP3 players near the end, when they were going out of style, started developing ways for users to share files because they recognize that the user is the best advertisement.
Amen to that.
So that being said, there was one particular article tonight that was close to home for you, Steve.
Wait, before we
Actually,
move on to
I wanted
articles,
to. There's something I
Okay.
forgot to mention.
Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. So the U.S. Pirate Party has started their #UnPatriotact protest, and it's up at masspirates.org, and where we have information about that. They're going to have a live stream starting tomorrow, if I recall correctly, and they'll have different people on talking about how evil the Patriot Act is. They have a petition up that it would be great if you could sign, and I'll put links in the description, and I'll put links in the chat. We know it's late notice, and we're still small in the United States, but we're here it's the 20th anniversary, and we want to educate and inform everybody about a government law that we find objectionable, because ultimately it goes after your right to privacy. You know, and so all in the, we've seen 20 years of we're going to go after the terrorists, and this law doesn't really help. So we feel we should get rid of it. 20 years is too long. And so we'll put links in there. So thank you, Joe, for letting me say that.
Not a problem.
There were a few tech-related things I wanted to cover. Google Play has lowered the rate of their app commission. It was something up to like 30. It's now down to 15%. Yeah, it was 30%. It's now 15%. And Apple has changed the App Store guidelines, which means that apps can now direct people to use non-standard payment methods.
And by non-standard, you mean not Apple?
Yeah, payment methods that exist outside of Apple's ecosphere. So we can definitely expect that to be abused probably immediately. Like as I speak, it's already being developed.
How long did it take for them to crack Apple's super secure fingerprint thing? Was it like an hour when they released that phone?
If that.
If that.
And
But yeah, that being said, definitely support the Patriot Act all the way.
No, no,
Getting,
no, no.
support it all the way of getting rid of it. Getting
all
rid
the
of
way
Poured
it.
it
to the
all the way
dumpster.
out the dumpster. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had a senior moment there and went, oh, bad.
Hey,
We caught you,
so
buddy.
Windows 11 will be able to run Android apps natively.
Wow, that is a change.
Yeah, sudden change of topic. Ha
But no. But on a serious note, the Patriot Act is terrible. It never served the American people and needs to go. But that being said, Steve, there was something you wanted to say.
Yeah, so I want to talk about an article I read. This comes from the British paper, The Guardian, and it has to do with Twitter. Twitter happens to be a social media facility that I particularly like. But the folks at Twitter were doing some internal research on how their homepage algorithm worked. So when you log onto Twitter and you sort of have two options for, seeing tweets from other people. You have the default, kind of the algorithmic view where, Twitter shows you what Twitter thinks you might want to see. And then you have just latest first, which is a timeline. I like the timeline, right? But, the other one is a default. So they're doing some research into, the behavior of their homepage, algorithm. And they start noticing that, hey, this thing seems to promote and amplify right-wing content, or at least more than left-wing content. So what they would do is look at tweets from politicians and news organizations and see which ones tended to get promoted and amplified and which ones didn't. So you could think of it as the Tories versus the Labour Party in the UK, or such and such. In the 7 countries where they did this analysis, in 6 cases, there were statistically significant differences, where right-wing content got promoted. The one exception to this is Germany, where that bias was not there. Don't know why, but, maybe it's, it could be something fun to theorize about. So at the, so where does this bring us at the end of the day? Well, clearly the folks at Twitter are scratching their head. They don't quite understand why this is happening, which is one of the difficult things about algorithm decision making is, it's very hard to build artificial intelligence or AI like algorithms and, kind of build in the auditing capability that it really explains why it behaves what it does and why it makes the decisions that it does, just because there are so many different points considered in all of this. But they are planning to, I believe, make their data publicly available so that other researchers have the ability to replicate their experiment. And I'm kind of hoping that they will, at least, work on strategies to even it out. But in the worst case, you could always go up to the little top and click the thing that says show latest tweets instead.
So we know at least one reason why these links get more play is because they play into divisiveness. They feed these primal dark patterns that is amplified by the short, punchy nature of social media.
Mm-hmm.
At least what's been observed on Facebook is that right-wing grievance publishers will run or have their proxies run networks of basically radicalization networks, Facebook groups where only an approved list of people get to post links to outside content, with the exclusive goal of driving people to these grievance sites. So like you'll join a Facebook group about like just discussing immigration, but the only content that gets discussed is anti-immigration. That's how Ben Shapiro made his network. That's how Andy Ngo of the post millennial runs his shit, by deliberately provoking people with half truths and misrepresented situations.
I mean, one reason that Germany could be an outlier in this is Germany actually, because of, well, you know, they were the cause of the Nazis and all, put in laws in place that says you cannot promote the swastika or promote Nazism. And we've already seen that. I think it was Facebook said, oh yeah, if we put the rules in place that would ban Nazis, that would ban a lot of Republicans as well. So we can't do that. And so, you know, if there's, in as much as there's an overlap between those two, you know, Germany has laws that say you can't do that. And so that's factored into the algorithm, though, I would assume. And so other countries don't have that. So, you know, that's part of the reason. That's probably part of the reason why.
Is there a twitter.de that I could use?
So you actually,
I mean, you could use what was it? You could use Tor to go to Germany and have your exit point at Germany, and then, you know, would think you're German. So there you go.
You can also change the country listing describing what the trending topics are. So you can change it to Germany if you want to get exposed to some just baffling art. But on the Facebook right-wing radicalization engine, it's worth remembering that Trump had a hotline to Zuckerberg. Like, Zuckerberg has been complicit for years in giving preferential treatment to right-wing rule breakers.
It makes money.
Yeah, it makes money, and he gets to pretend he's like neutral when really he's just kowtowing to these increasingly radical demands by right-wing populist fascists.
You're not neutral. You're just spineless.
All about the Benjamins.
Yeah.
But I mean, also to your larger point, you know, we don't know how these algorithms work. We just know what they do. And likewise for facial recognition, we don't know how those algorithms work, but we know they're racist. We know they're biased. We know they're not particularly accurate. And so, but again, they're an opaque box that we cannot figure out, both because they're proprietary, but also, even if they weren't, it's hard to, unless you're going to test all the inputs, it's hard to discern.
Now, Lawrence Lessig used to make a distinction between East Coast code and West Coast code. So one being policy, one being software. One of the things that both of them have in common is that they come with all the biases and baggages of the people who write them. And, you know, bias and discrimination and segregation, that's been a thing in the United States for a long time. And, you know, I think that one doesn't even start to, I mean, speaking for myself, thinking back over, you know, what adults in my life would tell me as a kid, and encourage or not encourage. I don't think bias is something that you can overcome without a conscious effort. There's just, you know, It's there.
Like, I seriously believe a lot of the point of modern AI and what is called AI, which is really just determinative algorithms, is intended to whitewash and excuse human
Mhm.
prejudice.
Yeah. I believe, I think you're right, at least in certain cases, because the computer seems like a neutral thing. It's just following instructions. But I'll agree. Software and the decisions that are made by computer systems are no less biased than the laws that legislatures pass and put on the books.
Yeah, it feels like it's kept deliberately opaque in much the same way that like religion used to be kept deliberately opaque. I mean, like computer code, Latin, like these are learned artificial languages available only to those who have the privilege to study them. Um, but perhaps that's getting a bit more esoteric than we really need to be getting into with 3 minutes left in the show.
You mean the soul is in the code in the software?
I mean, the ghost
No.
is in the shell. Anyway,
That being said, this all kind of also ties into net neutrality, does it not?
yes.
Just a smidge. And with that, I'm just going to say thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. Would you gentlemen like to contribute anything else this evening?
No, I think we had a good half hour. So, like, thanks for you guys who stuck it out, guys and folks and gals and any critters stuck it out, critters. Yeah, we love doing this. We love having you join us.
And those likes and shares and comments, all of it, just in that algorithm, that ghost in the machine.
If
So-
any of you have Worms Armageddon on good old games, add me, and I will play Worms Armageddon with you. That is the Malt Schlitzman promise.
Or any games for that matter, especially those old Nintendo games. Oh boy, they were fantastic.
Ikari Warriors, woo!
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Take care, all. Check us out at masspirates.org. All right, done.